Good evening, everyone. Jason Sulliman here. It is December 31st, 2020, New Year's Eve. And this is a common day where people will put together New Year's resolutions for the upcoming year. And I decided to make a New Year's resolution as well. So I wanted to kind of explain it a little bit here. I think it's going to be a fun little challenge. So here's a little information about it. So what I'm going to do this year is 365 different lip slurs in 365 days. Different lip slur pattern every day for 365 days. Now, I already practice every day, so that's not new for me. Today is day 1,241 of continuous practice. I haven't taken a day off since August of 2017. I practiced every day in 2018, every day in 2019, every day in 2020, and I'm going to practice every day in 2021 anyway. Because I'm a firm believer that I'm getting better at a faster rate by practicing every day. It's not necessarily a way to keep me practicing. It's just one component I'm going to plug into my practicing. Now, for the 1,200 days, or for the first 1,200 days of this particular run, I didn't do any lip slur patterns. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why. Now, I do practice agility and I do practice flexibility. I do a lot of things to work on those. But here's why I kind of shied away from lip slurs for a very long time. Personally, I find that lip slurs are not good for developing harmonic fluency. Your ability to know where you are within the chord progressions or the music, or just where you are on the instrument. Most people that do what we would call traditional lip slurs tend to just put the horn on a certain length, whether it's third position or first valve or whatever, and just kind of meander up and down a pattern of partials of the overtone series without using the tongue to develop flexibility. And that's pretty kind of a standard way that we do it. But you don't really have to think about things in terms of where you are in the instrument or what note you're playing as much. You can kind of mentally check out on that. And I think a lot of times young and developing players get into lip slurs because you can experience some success with those, and you can get to the point where you're moving pretty quickly and getting around the range, but you're not really thinking about where you are in the instrument. So if you do too much of it at a young age, I think that can be detrimental. So I tend to encourage a lot of harmonic patterns and chord progressions. And a lot of students hate it because you really have to think about it, but I think you come out the other end just more knowledgeable in terms of your way around the instrument. Now, lip slurs I do think are good when you need to develop the physical mechanism of flexibility. And that is something that kind of works a little better when you get to the point where you have to go faster than what you can do with your level of harmonic fluency. And that's going to be different for everybody. But when you get to a point to where if you're playing chord progressions, you're playing interval patterns, and you just can't think about the notes fast enough to play the patterns, you kind of need a pattern where you can just put the horn at a certain length and just go and not, essentially decouple those aspects of thought. So I think when you need to kind of get beyond the threshold of your fluency, that's where lip slurs can come in. And so I think a lot of people spend a lot of time doing lip slurs below that threshold. And I don't really agree with that. So I'm going to try to come up with a way to make sure I'm staying above that threshold when I do these lip slur patterns. So frankly, it took me about 1,200 days to get to the point where I felt like I needed to add this to my practicing. I'm starting to work on things like trills. And for a long time, that just wasn't something that needed to be done. I had bigger fish to fry in my own practicing, but it's about time. So here we go, 2021. Another limitation of lip slurs that I find is that sometimes students or players get a couple of lip slurs and they like the way that they sound and they like the way that they feel and they get good at them, and then they kind of rely on those, and then they have a lot of ability to play those particular patterns, but that doesn't necessarily transfer to flexibility all over the instrument. You can kind of get really good at the pattern as opposed to just the general concept of flexibility. And so I just kind of would never do those because I would rather do chord progressions and interval patterns because I can just make those go all over the range of the instrument and then just go all over any key and all that stuff. And so it's something that kind of kept me away from lip slurs. So I thought, well, what if there's a way that I can do lip slurs and kind of, get the best of both worlds? So I thought, well, okay, I'll continue to work on my slurred, chord progression patterns and interval patterns and all that stuff. But if I could create a menu of like hundreds of lip slur patterns, maybe a little bit, that are a little different, here and there, so that I could do a different one every day, well, then maybe I could get the best of both worlds. So that's exactly what I did. Here's how I did it. I'm going to share you a little bit. So I like Excel because you could do a lot of patternistic type stuff with it. So let's say that numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 represent 6 partials on the instrument, right? From the fundamental on up to the 6th partial. And then let's just take 4 notes as if we're talking 4 16th notes within a beat. So every combination of those 6 notes making up those 4 16th notes You can come up with a simple math pattern and figure it out. You'd start with 1, 1, 1, 1, you'd go to 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 3, then you start doing some click, drag, and copy, paste. And next thing you know, you're off and running and you're just writing down all the patterns. Spoiler alert, I got all the way up to 6,666, which of course would be the highest possible number if you're only using the digits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. There are 1,296 different. Now, these are not all good lip slurs. So let's kind of go through. So that was just step 1. So step 2 is I said, well, for me, I'm going to remove any entry that has a number 1 in it. And what that means is I am removing the fundamental pitch or the pedal notes from my lip slur patterns. And I'm doing that intentionally because frankly, my pedal notes, though they sound okay, I'm not yet at a point to where I can go fast enough to make it a worthwhile endeavor. There are other remedial things I need to do to keep developing my facility down in that part of the range. And I don't want to couple that into this lip slur challenge. I want to kind of keep that separate and work on that separately. There will be a point where I will kind of put that back in. Maybe that's 2022. I don't know. We'll see. But I removed all the entries with the number 1 in them. And then, so obviously it starts with a 2, 2, 2, 2, because everything before that would have a 1 in it. And then, the patterns just kind of keep going through and we get to the point where there are 625 of them. All the ones are kind of down there at the bottom in the garbage. So we're down to 625. So then from there, I said, okay, let's take these 625 and let's remove any entries that have 2 numbers, adjacent numbers that are the same. So if it goes like 2, 2, 3, 2, that's not necessarily a full lip slur. That means part of the time you're having to articulate. And so I just wanted to remove that so that I'm always changing partials for each of these notes. Now I know that there are some Arbin patterns and I think the Marsteller triplet arpeggiations, I can see the pages where you do repeat notes. And that's a good thing to work on. I just don't want to include it in this particular lip slur challenge. So this is how I made the algorithm. So here we go. So by removing all the entries that have 2 consecutive digits that are identical, you take those out, you're down to 320 different. So then from there, I said, okay, well, now let's figure out a formula to figure out how leapy and agile these different patterns are, because there's going to be a wide variety in that. So I said, okay, well, what if we take the absolute value, the difference between the first digit and the second digit? So if it's negative, we remove the negative, right? And then we figure out the absolute value between the second and the third digit, and then the third digit and the fourth digit, and we add those together. Well, that would mean that if all the numbers are really close together, let's say 2, 3, 4, 3, the difference of 1, a difference of 1, and a difference of 1, that means that you're going to get an index number of 3, right? And that would be the smallest number that you would get. And that's what this column is right here. So I ran the formula. And what you can see is that some of the patterns have considerably more leaps than others. So 3 is the smallest number. Ooh, there's a 10. That's pretty impressive. Ooh, there's an 11. This one goes to 11, right? So what is 11? That would be 2, 6, 2, 5. So on my instrument, that would be like playing a low B flat up to the F above the staff. That would be the pattern. Now that might be something good to work on, but I'm just not at a point where I'm wanting to do that right now. I would rather pick patterns that are a little simpler in nature, a little more pedestrian in nature, so I can go faster to work on that physical mechanism, more like trills. So that's where I'm going. So what I did was I then basically sorted these in terms of their index number. And then I separated them into categories of leapiness. So that category, that index of 3, that means that all of the patterns in the 3 category, all of the notes are on adjacent partials, right? And there's only 24 of those patterns. So then if we look at the ones where number 4, that means there's 1 leap of only 1 partial. So if you look at the first one, it says 2, 3, 4, 2. That would be B flat, F, up to D, B flat, F, B flat, and then back down to low B flat, skipping the F on the way back down. So there's that 1 leap in the pattern there. So I said, okay, so let's take 2, let's combine groups. We'll make 8s, if you will. So that's what these columns are over here. So if we combine patterns, and what I had to do was the last digit in the first pattern needs to be only 1 away from the first digit in the second pattern. And then the last digit in the second pattern needs to be only 1 digit away from the first digit in the first pattern, so it can be looped and played multiple times, right? So I made these 8-note slur patterns like this. This is an 8-note slur pattern. And then what I wanted to do is I wanted to remove the redundancies, all right? So if you have 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, that's a fine lip slur pattern. In fact, many people have probably played that one. But if you then have 3 4 3 4 3 4 3 4 3 over and over, it's the same thing, just up a shelf. So as far as I'm concerned, for the purposes of this little challenge and this exercise, I'm treating those as the same slur because I will take the pattern and most likely move it about the range of the instrument. So I wanted to remove the redundancies. So I went through various, math things, who likes math, and I came up with all these different patterns. So now the peach color and the green color that you see, those are the ones where all the partials are adjacent. Those are level 3. And then the blue and the purple are level 4. I put them all together, and lo and behold, I have 479 different lip slur patterns. So then I put them in order. I slapped a random number generator on it. I sorted them by the number that came up, and I put a date on it. And so now what I'm going to do is every day, I'm just going to go and take the next pattern. I'm going to spend 5 minutes of practice time on it, and then I'm going to cut a little video of it. So it's not going to be perfect. It's not meant to be, but it's just me practicing, the lip slurs. But every day I'm going to work on a slightly different lip slur pattern. And then I'm going to use that to just develop a general concept of flexibility within my playing. So I'll post them on Instagram, and I don't know, I might put them on my blog or something like that. So that's what I got. That's what I'm going to do for 2021. If you want to try some of this stuff, let me know. I don't claim copyright on these number patterns. That's all they are. But it should be fun, So for example, January 1st, you'll notice it says 4 3 2 4 5 4 6 5. So that's going to be my January 1st pattern. So tomorrow I'm going to take 5 minutes and work on. Well, I'll save it for tomorrow. I don't want to get too ahead of myself here. It's not for the first of the year yet, but I'm really looking forward to this challenge. Find ways to challenge yourself in your own practicing. And again, if you're interested in getting in on this, or if, on some random day in the year, if you're like, oh, I like the sound of that lip slur, let me know and I'll send it to you. It's just written out in like matrix language here. I haven't written them out in no notation, but I'm going to keep track of all the tempos that I can kind of do them at. And if there are outliers, either ones that I can do really quickly or ones that are really slow and clunky, I'm going to put those in different categories because they'll serve a different purpose. And so eventually I might kind of make collections of lip slurs that might be helpful for people. So happy practicing and enjoy 2021.